figuring out what you want, how to get what you want, and then leveraging tactics by these three wonderful people that they've been doing for years and years and years. This is going to be, I feel like I'm a sponge as much as you guys are. I just want to gather as much information as humanly possible from these people. So without further ado, I wanted to give a quick introduction, and truthfully, I wanted them to introduce themselves because nobody introduces themselves better than themselves. So I'll start with Suzy, then Andrew, then Keith. Just who are you? What do you do? And we'll move from there. And I've got some awesome questions to ask you guys today, and I'm super excited about it. So Suzy, please.
So my name's Suzy Padgett. I am the Vice President Branch Manager for Long & Foster's Columbia office. What that means is I manage 200 realtors in the county. So it's a busy office all the time. And this is a heavy seller's market. I'm sure you all have heard that. So we're negotiating things all day long with sellers and buyers. And so I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Andrew?
My name is Andrew Robinson. I'm a principal here at OffitKurman. We're a full service law firm. I focus mainly on real estate and business law, and like Suzy, negotiation is probably what I do. Negotiation and some psychology and sociology is probably what I do 90% of my day. Negotiating with my own clients, negotiating to get clients, and negotiating with opposing counsel and all issues. So I'm happy to be here as well.
Thanks, man. Keith?
All right. Good morning, everybody. Keith Daw with McDonnell Consulting Group. And one of my part-time jobs within my full-time job, if you will, might be a little thing called sales training. So whether it's me trying to, as Andrew said, negotiate the terms of the deal for a new client we're working with, or teaching them how to navigate, whether it's directly to their prospect, whether it's a client that's looking for something new, maybe going through a third-party, distributor or channel partner. But the other thing, and I'll throw it out there, is negotiation isn't always just, oh, let's get a win-win. It's an opportunity to be a little tactical and strategic, and also make sure that it's in your best interest. And those are things personally as well as professionally, hoping that we'll have some fun talking about too.
Well, awesome. And once again, I'm Eric. I'm the Director of Business Development at Edwards Performance Solutions, and we do all things cybersecurity. So you've got four different perspectives on negotiation, four different viewpoints, four ways to ultimately get to the end goal of what you're looking to do. So I'm extremely excited to have this discussion, and I kind of wanted to jump in. So the way I wanted to structure this is I wanted to talk about the actual word negotiation, what it actually means, how these three wonderful people define that word, and then kind of run through how negotiation is leveraged in their work, whether it be external selling, internal selling, in their personal life, and then kind of talking about some other experiences and maybe some things that they want to pass off to the next generation. But the ultimate goal is, how can you guys leverage some of these tools, these tips, these trades to actually be better at negotiation? Because as we all know, you're constantly negotiating, whether you know it or not. Every day you're doing it. Whether it's with negotiating your dog to eat its food, going to work, negotiating the guy next to you to not touch you as much as to not jump into your lane. Who knows? So the point is, I'm really excited about talking about this topic, and I wanted to jump in. Let's start with Andrew. So what is your definition of the word negotiation? Once you guys are done, I'll give the actual definition, says Google. But Andrew, how do you define that word?
Yeah, for me, negotiation starts with, there's got to be a conversation, and the parties have to have a desire to reach some sort of an agreement. So if the parties have no desire to agree on anything, you're not negotiating. You're just talking at each other, yelling at each other. And there's a Mark Twain quote that I can't remember, but it's something about, taking effort to get away from communicating so you can actually have a conversation. And that's something I see a lot. People, the posturing can go on for so long. And really, at some point, let's just get down to it. If we're not going to have a real conversation, there's no point in negotiating. There's a place for posturing, but at some point, you really need to have that. You have a desire to get to some point. I have a desire to get to some point. Let's talk. And we can get into it later, but one of the things I want people to keep in mind is sometimes it's okay to say, we're not splitting the baby on this one. I'm right and you're wrong, and I'm willing to walk away from the table. That has to be an option in your back pocket.
Yeah. Love that. Suzy, how about you? Definition of negotiation in your terms.
I would say it's helping other people get what they want while you get what you want. And it's really, to me, it comes down to that. The communication is definitely key. And you do have to have that line in the sand, even if it's in your own mind. But, you know, in the world of residential and commercial real estate, you want it to feel, that has to feel happy. It should not feel like a very difficult situation at the end. And so helping everybody get what they want in my world from negotiation is really, for us, the best way to go.
Got it.
If I could just pin one thing on that. It's funny you say that, Suzy. I've had so many judges tell me both parties are walking away feeling miserable. I did the right thing. So there's the flip side of that coin too.
I
didn't know
get
how
it.
you did that, Andrew. Not sure how you get in front of that judge.
It's most judges.
Yeah. Keith, what about you from a you're my sales trainer. What's your definition of negotiation?
So thinking about someone who is on the seller standpoint, I'm the one that's trying to get this prospect to close, and the prospect's coming back to me. We're doing this negotiation dance. Agree with Andrew and Suzy completely. It is a conversation, and there's communication and psychology stuff behind it, of course. But understanding that the idea of the negotiation is, I want to close this deal. You want to get the best terms. I want to get what I want to get in terms that you're feeling comfortable. So both parties walk away feeling comfortable with it. Not if you walk away, like Andrew said, if you walk away from this thing and say like, yeah, I guess that's not negotiation. That's just giving in, that's compromising, that's checking a box so that the judge walks away. That's not what negotiation. It's taking control of the conversation in a way that genuinely gets your best interest served in terms that the other party says, no, I'm good with that. I like that. And that keeps that comfort that's there, and it sets a precedent for other things down the road. If you're giving away the farm to be able to close the deal and make everybody happy, you're setting a bad precedent, and that client's going to be a pain in the you-know-what down the road as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So Merriam-Webster says to confer with another so as to arrive at the settlement of some manner. So
Very helpful.
it's a bunch of, yeah, I'm sure you know that. It's a bunch of jumbled words, but I think the general consensus here is it's a dialogue. There has to be active communication. There has to be active listening that occurs. But to everybody's point, there has to be some sort of concession strategy that you've put in place beforehand, knowing where your walkaway point is and knowing, what you want. At the end of the day, I want you to win my business. I want you to give me that promotion. I need you to make me dinner, please. And I need to get to that point. But I think all of these things put together is you can't just say, I'm willing to give you everything possible to get what I need, because ultimately you didn't negotiate. You just conceded completely. So interestingly enough, I like these definitions way better than Merriam-Webster dictionary, because I don't think it made any sense. But so let's take that word and now let's apply it. So I want to start professionally, because we're all professionals here. And I want to take this two different ways. All three of you have negotiated to win business, and all three of you negotiated to exceed and excel in your career, both within your job and outside of your job. So tell me from an external perspective, when you're negotiating with clients, because we have three very different viewpoints. Someone selling houses and buildings, someone selling legality, and someone selling training. And cyber. Those are three totally different viewpoints, but I think we are all somehow doing it in a very similar manner to get what we want. So let's start with Suzy. How are you leveraging negotiation in your professional career from an external perspective? When you're selling something, and I know you manage 200 contractors, so we'll talk about them. How are you negotiating with them to get what you want, which is tons of sales, tons of homes bought? What are you doing?
Well, from that perspective, what I like to do is I like to manage people the way they want to be managed. I want to meet them where they are. Some people you need to have long discussions with. Others, they don't want to have long discussions. They want short discussions. And knowing the person, I think getting the relationship is what's key in that kind of a situation. we are a relationship business, whether it's with a seller, whether it's me with my agents, whether it's other things we're doing out in the community. It's all about the relationships. And I think for me, that's why it works. I grew up in a house, there were 8 of us, and we negotiated everything all day long. We still do, because we have to operate as a unit when things, when family things come up. But it is about getting to know what's important to that person before you decide to tell them what's important to them.
Yeah, and I think your world is so interesting because, again, I've purchased a home, and I remember the realtor that sold it to me. He asked all the right questions. He kept buying. He kept the negotiation power the whole time. He never. I think I mentioned to you, Susie. I've looked at houses and I've looked at cars, and they say, "Look at the steering wheel. It's so amazing." And I go, "I don't care about the steering wheel.
Right.
You lost all your negotiation power. Like, you didn't ask that I have 3 dogs. I need big storage in the back. You never asked me. So now I'm telling you. So I need more of a discount, actually. So you've lost all your negotiation power with me. So when someone's buying a house, is there? I mean, whether you could share these tips and trades, like, is there tips and trades for the negotiation from our perspective, the buyer, that we should know about? I mean, can you
So
share?
we're in a market. I call it a magic time for sellers, because I've never, in all these years, and I've been practicing since 1985, I've never seen a market more driven towards the sellers. There's just not enough on the market. And so understanding what's important, there was one particular situation. I mean, the property went 100,000 over list price, and there were 10 or 12 offers, but what got the house was the buyer said, "We'll take all your furniture," because the sellers were moving to Florida and they didn't want the furniture. But you had to ask the right questions to know that. And who knew that would be the thing,
Let's pick that out. You have to ask the right questions.
Yeah.
I think that will be a common theme today between all 4 of us. You have to be able to be willing to ask the right questions. So on that theme, Andrew, like, how are you using negotiation in your world? You're more of a traditional seller, but then you're also you're providing legal support. So, like, how are you leveraging negotiation to get what you ultimately want? Do you have any tips for the group?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it starts with I have to negotiate with my own clients.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's even to retain services. And I deal with a lot of real estate brokers. And some people already feel like, well, I'm dealing with one, there's one intermediary. Now they're telling me I need to get another one. And it's just more cost upon cost. And they go, especially in the commercial world, they go, "I have a broker. What do you mean you don't draft the lease for me? What do you mean you can't do this for me?" And they go, "You need an attorney." And they go, "Great. I thought I was paying you for this. Now I'm paying." So a lot of times I come into the picture in that role, or people go, "Oh God, I need an attorney now." And so I have to set expectations, and that's a big thing for me. I don't want to do the work for somebody and have them be upset with me over a bill, and then not come back. So, with me, a lot of it is if I do good work for one customer, that's great. That's not going to keep me in business. It's got to be somebody coming back, telling people, "This is my attorney. I love working with him. Go see him." So a lot of it is setting those expectations, and then also getting into the pain and risk management. I call it pain. That's what a lot of lawyers use. And pain is money, it's time, it's stress. People say, "I want to go to court. I want to sue." And I go, "Okay, let's talk about that." I have to set expectations, talk about what they can expect to pay. I'm a big fan of being a devil's advocate, even if it makes my clients angry at me, to say, if you can't take these questions from me, I'm your attorney. That's how it's going to be moving forward. So really, and that gets into asking the right questions, because you need to know the knowledge base of the person you're negotiating with in order to have that cost benefit analysis and have it be meaningful. If you submit an offer to somebody in 30 seconds, they say yes, chances are you probably could have gotten a much better deal, but your knowledge was off or their knowledge is off. Maybe you're getting a great deal. So you have to find out, ask those probing questions, see what you can come up with, and then do that internal pain risk analysis to get to where it is you want to be. And that works, again, with my clients, but then it carries over into when we're negotiating a lease or whatever it is. We're putting in a lot of times comments that we're willing to throw in the trash if we need to. It's leverage. we'll give on this because we really want this. And there's a song and dance, and the experienced people know how it works.
Yep.
But that's where it is. It's all about risk management. What's your pain tolerance for certain things? What do we think the other side is? And let's try to leverage that. And it's in all facets of what we do.
No, so I heard ask questions. I heard from Suzy, set expectations, pain management, leveraging that. Keith, bring me home. What other tips? Tell me how negotiation is used in your world, especially, and maybe you could dabble both from the training and the selling part of it.
Okay, very good. So again, echoing some of the things that Suzy and Andrew have said, it is a conversation, but my thing is, I'll tell, and this is from a practical personal application, from training, from using, right? And is the person who is in control of the conversation is the one who's in control of the negotiation. Now, I'm not suggesting that you're using your evil powers to manipulate people to do what, no, but you need to be, again, have the level of preparation as was said, go into this thinking, all right, cool. So I'm going to be buying this house and it's in this kind of a market. What are the kind, so when you have the forethought of what kind of things could be brought to me, which ones could be acceptable, which ones are deal breakers, how do I, right? So now you start to be prepared for that. And as Andrew said, I'm glad somebody else said, other than me said it, so I didn't look like the bad guy, is a negotiation is I'm going to go into this opportunity, this conversation to negotiate what's in the best interest of me or my client or my company, understanding there might be some concessions. I want you to walk away thinking that was awesome. I get what I want. Everybody continues to work together, but I already came prepared. It's almost like I had this scripted in my head and I knew at what point I was going to walk away. And, I've done that with buying cars, buying homes over the years, because I knew at what point. But thinking back to the deals, everybody wants a fair deal. So is this a negotiation or is it just somebody's looking for a discount? And being able to understand, like, hey, I'm more than happy, Andrew, I'm more than happy to train your team. If your budget is instead of this is only going to be this, that's awesome. So what things on the proposal that I sent you are we going to cut out that are less as important to getting, right? The price is the price. If you need to lower the price, then we need to lower the scope of the work. And I would say to everybody on here, the scope creep, well, we kind of agreed. I guess I can squeeze that, right? So those are the things that if we don't have a proper negotiation and don't set that precedent, not even just from a legal standpoint, we're setting ourselves up for a bunch of headaches and a bunch of misunderstandings and unmet expectations down the road if we aren't putting some structure to this conversation and understanding, is this a true negotiation? Or is this just somebody who's looking to go get a good deal and they understand most salespeople will bend over backwards to close the deal?
Real quick, Keith, you just gave a great example of it. Can you give your definition? What's a concession strategy? What's the best? What I know there's different forms of it, but just real quick for the group, what is a concession strategy?
So for me, I would go into, and let's just pick somebody here. Let's go ahead and say Jenna and I are going to be talking about this project. And I'm thinking, all right, she's going to come back to me. What are the 2 or 3 things she can ask me to do as far as a concession? Very quickly, I will rank them 1, 2, and 3. What is in my best interest, whether it's profit, whether it's ease, whether it's market, whatever those things are, I'll rank them. Here's the 3 things she could ask. I'll rank them as in my preference. And then next to it, I just kind of do a little if then. If she asks me this, then I will request this in return. And obviously the least preferred has the biggest upside for me. Like if I'm going to do that, you better extend this to a 3-year contract instead of a 1-year. Well, then Jen is like, well, I can't do that. Never mind. Right. So I think part of it is come prepared of what the person might ask, rank them as far as your preference, and then said, if you ask me for this, I'm going to request this in return. Either way, you're going to walk away saying, I got something that works for me, my team, my company.
I love it. Yeah, no, that's fantastic. So truthfully, I've sold a lot of different things, and I want to get away from a lot of the selling because not everybody here is a salesperson. There's a piece of this that is selling externally. I've sold everything from cyber to virtual reality to barbecue to logistics to golf clubs to e-commerce sites to whatever. I've sold products, I've sold services, as all these people here. Everybody in this role, at least on the panel, have sold something. So I wanted to make sure we talked about that because there is a craft to negotiation as it relates to selling. But then I think there's the other piece of it, and it's the internal selling. You know, I've spoken, I'm a Towson grad, and I've spoken in front of Towson grads, and hey, how many people are salesmen? Nobody raises their hand. Well, I'm an accountant. Why do I need to negotiate? Well, don't you want a promotion? Don't you want to get that raise you want? Like, so if everybody quickly, because I think this is going to lead into the next topic, which is how negotiation is leveraged personally. How did you negotiate to get to where you are today? So I don't want to hear how you're doing it externally, but like you all are in leadership roles right now. Like millennials like myself, how did you get there? How did you negotiate that? So Suzy, can you just kind of give me some of the tips you used to negotiate your own self brand?
So I managed my first office at 27 and I didn't know. I mean, it's crazy that that's what happened, but that's what happened. And I think it's because I just had I knew that I could do it well. I believed in it, and I determined strategies for how I would do what I needed to do. I will tell you that changes every market. And at this point in my career, my biggest fear is complacency. And so keeping ahead of what's going on in the market and in the industry, I think keeps me there.
Love that.
And so internally, it's about pushing myself to continue to learn. Externally, it's pointing out that I've learned it. It's great when you get to a certain point in your profession. The hard part is staying there. And so that really is about challenging myself to be better than I was yesterday, not better than somebody else, but better than I was yesterday.
Yeah. So it sounds like recognizing what you want, being confident of why you want it, saying that you want it, and then doing it, and then going ahead and doing it. And that's your negotiation power. I love that. That's wow. That was deep. I like that. Andrew, what about you? How have you gotten to where you are today? Like, what are the tips, and are you where you want to be? Like, is that
here with all the wonderful people? Of course, this is where I want to be. Of course. Now, I honestly, it's knowing your audience, whatever it may be. I remember even being in college, knowing that the people you want to impress, the people you want to win over, whether it's for promotion, job, or just your personal life, you have to understand who you're talking to. I've been in boardrooms where a junior associate, like right out of law school, will mouth off to 70-year-old senior partners who have been doing this for 50 years with why her ideas or his ideas are so much better than theirs. Those people don't last long. They're not reading the room. If you want to be a firebrand like that, go do it. But chances are you're not reading the room well. Knowing what the people, if a supervisor, say, is 15 or 20 years older than you, you have to understand that they're looking to replace themselves with somebody that they see. They want to look at you and see themselves. And if you're so disengaged from what their interests are, from what their goals are, that negotiation's never gonna, you come in and work there for 5 days and demand a pay raise, you're not understanding the audience. They're probably losing money on you for several years before you're ever gonna make them a dime. You have to know that going in. If you have no leverage, understand you have no leverage.
Yeah.
And build that up. Make yourself valuable. Have the confidence, like Suzy said. Be confident, but know the room. Read the room, and plan for that. If you know you want to be a big shot in the accounting world, know what it takes to get there. Try to model yourself to the extent you can, and read the room, and present that to the right people.
I'll tell you, body language, and I want to jump to Keith. Body language is so pivotal in negotiation, because you could tell when someone's like, I remember I was in a meeting with a woman and she kept looking behind her, and I'm like, I think this is over. I think this is not the right time to be here. And I recognize that. So it sounds like you kind of recognize the power that you had. You were confident, like Suzy mentioned, but you read the room and you were able to navigate through that process. And here you are, helping others learn that. So that's awesome, man. So Keith, I mean, what do you think? How did you get to where you were? What, before you even started training people on this stuff, like how did you use it?
Well, for me, I think part of it is just tenacity. Building on what Suzy said, I knew what I wanted. In some cases, I didn't know exactly where to find it. So I talked to people, did the research, did whatever I need to, think it, plan it, build it, do it, right? And that's just kind of more my style, instead of, as Andrew said, I have been years ago, I was that person in the room that was reluctant to share or say something, and somebody said, Keith, let it fly. I'm like, all right, not necessarily providing any leverage, but people knew how I felt. But I think being able to read the audience, sometimes people get so worked up about this. Oh, how do I make sure that I'm doing the right thing? And like, you just made it much harder than it needs to be. Where Andrew's like, oh, no, that's perfectly reasonable, Keith. If I do this, you do that. All right, cool. Instead of now all of a sudden, we're making things more difficult. Have a conversation, be genuine. Here's what be transparent. Like, Suzy, look, I love this house. I found it. This was me several years ago. I found a house that I absolutely loved, was just looking around, but I'm thinking, if this thing sells, I'm going to be ticked off if it sells. So I told the person, I will give you full asking price for the house if you can offer these concessions to me on the closing costs and take care of this one thing inside in the bathroom that just wasn't quite done yet. And they're like, done. I mean, it was 3 emails back and forth, one of which was just the realtor can say, done. They got exactly what they wanted from the net standpoint. I saved $6,000-7,000 out of pocket immediately, right? Done deal. But I knew they wanted to sell that house quickly because they had just spent a bunch of money flipping it. So to Andrew's thing, I understood they wanted as much of that, right? So understanding those terms. So I think the confidence is definitely going to be for all of you, is to understand what do you want? Why do you want it? Is it in your best interest? What's the best interest of that person, that company, that team? And just take all of that into consideration, because just because you want it doesn't mean you should necessarily go after it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't ask for it, right? Sometimes just going through the process is going to be enough to say, you know what? I think it's a great idea, Rachel, but there might be some things I need to say or do over the next few weeks before I can, or to prove my worth, or I got to learn some stuff. Big believer in figure out acting as if you want that promotion. Make sure you know exactly what is going to be entailed in using in that position. Learn what you need to. Go talk, go take a class, go whatever. Come prepared to be able to say, I get it, I understand it, been there. Right now, all of a sudden, it's not a wish; it's actually a good business strategy.
And I'll add, and again, I'll just throw it out there. I'm 28. I'm as millennial gets. I'm a young professional in this world, and the one thing I always have seen as I've been getting jobs is I've always told people what I've wanted. To Andrew's point, I never told them what, you're giving me this. It was, here's what I think I'm worth and why, as respectful as I possibly can. But here's why I believe I'm going to bring that value. And truthfully, every job I've ever gotten to where I am now, they wanted 5, 10, 15 years of experience. I haven't even been a business professional for 15 years. How am I going to? So I always needed to negotiate and say, well, look, you asked for 15 years, but what if I'm able to give you this, and this? And usually it's tenacity, passion, and drive. And yes, and as I've built up my exposure, and that's from my perspective. And it sounds like all of you have done the same thing. Is you've always come at it with an extreme passion. You've always come at it with extreme confidence. And I truly believe confidence sells. You cannot, and I tell when I do the speaking sessions and I see these kids with their heads down, or my 13-year-old brother-in-law, he goes, well, I'm just not good enough. No, you are. Here's why. And you need to believe it, or else no one else will believe it. So I think this is a great segue to kind of finish before we talk into our last kind of, I always like to leave is like, what's your tip to the next generation? So we'll finish there, but in your personal life, I think negotiation is just as valuable. And I mentioned my 13-year-old brother-in-law. He's been living with me recently, and I've had to negotiate with a 13-year-old when I don't have kids. But I used to manage kid camp, so I have to speak to him completely differently. I'm not his business coach. I can't be like, you do your homework and you'll thrive in life. He doesn't care. Do your homework and then you could play your games and then this. So how are you guys leveraging your negotiation skills at home? Can we speak on that a little bit without obviously getting too personal? Andrew, what are you doing at home? Are you changing anything? What's different about
Yeah,
negotiating?
in my house, with, obviously my wife, we've been together since like basically high school. So there's a negotiation there, but we know each other very well. And with my daughter, I've got an 11-year-old, and she, like you said, the negotiation changes. And a lot of it, again, is knowing the knowledge level of the other party. Like you said, you can't promote how great it is to succeed in your education for something that's 20, 30 years down the line. That's not going to appeal to somebody who's 13. Um, but knowing that going to the negotiation, like I know my daughter loves her, of her phone and iPad more than anything in the world, probably more than her parents. So in giving that to her, it was kind of a Faustian bargain. I said, I've got ultimate leverage over you until you move out, probably. And like growing up, a lot of people probably had that with their cars, with their parents. It's like, I pay your car payment, or I pay your insurance. Like, good luck, negotiating with me. So it goes back to knowing your audience. I mean, when I'm talking to my wife, it's not the same way I'm talking to a difficult client, or the same way I'm talking to opposing counsel trying to negotiate a lease or something. It's knowing, again, and long-term relationship. This isn't a one-time deal. Like with my family, it's not after this deal we never see each other again.
Mhm.
Hopefully, we're negotiating, but we know in the back of our minds this is a long-term relationship.
Love it.
So you give on things you might not normally give on a one-off transaction.
Susie, what
I
about?
give every day.
No, I love that. That's hilarious. Susie, well, give me some of your tips and tricks. Like what? Give
So
me what's your
I
magic?
think it's important to say thank you and recognize when you've made a mistake.
Yeah.
Did you talk to my wife, Susie? Is that?
As a parent. I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
I was a single mom for a lot of years. And so when my kids were in high school, I mean, they're in their 30s now, but what I did was I said, well, we want a car. Okay, you got to share the car. I'll buy this old car, but you got to pay the insurance. I'll put you on my plan. And you're not going to drive around without a cell phone. So you got to pay that part of it. So you got to get a job. And if you start bringing me C's, well, you can't have the job, and oh, well, the car goes. And I never saw a C in high school from either one of them.
Love that.
And so it is, you're negotiating everything all day long, but I feel for parents today through the pandemic, because there's nothing you can take away from them. What are you going to take away? You can't sit in the living room tonight.
It's tough. Yeah. I've
It's
experienced it firsthand. It's with him being in
it's
virtual,
hard.
very tough. I feel for all the parents out there. I experiencing it firsthand.
My daughter teaches at Wild Lake High School, and I know she knows how hard it's been on the parents
Yeah.
as well as the kids. But negotiation is different in the last year from a family perspective.
Sure is.
Sometimes you have to negotiate. I'm going to take this meeting at this moment, and you go downstairs. It's all different right now.
It's funny, before the call, I mentioned I have 3 dogs, and I looked at David, he's home today, and I said, I need you in the basement taking your class with the 3 dogs. He goes, but, and I go, look, I understand you don't want to do it, but if you do this for me right now, I promise later we'll go to the driving range. Like, you go do this now. Driving range is going to be in your future. And it was a quick negotiation. I got what I wanted. I haven't heard from him, and you guys haven't heard any dogs barking. So it's working. Keith, tell me what at home, what are you doing differently? Because you're on all the time, man. That's why I love you. You are always on. How do you turn it off, and how do you take it home with you?
Well, first of all, I just physically turn off the technology and say,
Fair enough.
but I think part of it, and as I'm hearing from everyone, is just being able to pause long enough to understand what is my personal motivation and what is the other person's personal motivation, right? So the example with the car, I bought my own car. I paid for my own insurance. So my parents didn't have that leverage. So at some point they're like, hey, I'm going to take your car. I'm like, can't, I own it. My name's on here, not you're no cop, right? So that wasn't a leverage. They couldn't negotiate that way. And if my dad said, well, I'll take you off my policy, I'm like, all right, I'll go buy my own policy, right? So that wouldn't be a good negotiation. Now, at the same time, thinking about, the kids right now, you could turn somebody around and say, all right, look, you can't get on Fortnite if you don't blah, 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 blah. Like, well, then they don't do the tasks that they don't empty the dishwasher or whatever. And then you tell them they can't get they want. You're like, hey, I taught them. And then they're trudging around the house making, right? And I'm like, oh my gosh, you're such a pain, right? So you could go through that. That's not a good negotiation, right? That's you just trying to be a tyrant and get away with it. So I think understanding. So I have kind of a stepdaughter here. So I'm like looking at this situation and I'm like, all right. Said her mom's appreciation is really important. And last thing she'd want to do is upset her mom. So I'm like, you know what would make mom really happy is if you took care of these things, maybe throw some stuff in the wash. So when she gets home, she doesn't have to deal with it. So you two could sit down so I just talked through this whole thing and she's like, oh, that'd be great. So Jen walks in the door and here she's thinking, oh my gosh, you did. And she's just smiling. I don't need the credit for it, but yet at the same time, I get that little knowing glance. The next time I have a conversation where I'm like, so I think building that relationship, I need to ask her for that tough favor, like you did with David. She's not even going to, no qualms about it, because every time we go into one of these transactions, she benefits out of it. But ultimately, I got what I needed because now if Jen's not doing that, Jen and I can go out on a date night. Right. So there's always a method to the madness.
So I'm seeing some questions pop up. So I wanted to ask one final question. If you guys could just answer in one fell swoop, shameless plug. I started a podcast and I always ask one final question and I wanted to bring it here to you guys. So what do you want to instill in the next generation as it regards to negotiation? Do you have any tips, books, best practices? Can each of you just round robin it real quick? And then we'll jump to these questions. But Suzy, what do you want to leave for the next generation? Like, what is your 1,000-foot view tip that will help?
So the best book I've read is Never Split the Difference. If you get a chance, read it. It's an easy read. It's a fun read, but you'll learn some stuff. What I would want the next generation to know is that you gotta talk more. You have to have more conversation. You can't negotiate in a 30-word text. And there's not enough conversation going on. And as soon as everybody's comfortable, being eyeball to eyeball is great. It does make the difference. I'm not suggesting that we not do this for meetings and negotiation. I'm just suggesting that we need to put a greater value on the relationship.
Got it. Love it. Andrew, how about you?
That wasn't even something I was going to bring up, but that's a good point. There's a lot of communication through email and text now, or WhatsApp and all that. I can tell you, I've met with attorneys who said, wow, from your emails, I thought you were going to be a little just meaner or whatever. And I go, oh, and I'm like, to my mind, I thought I was writing it professionally. And I'm like, oh no, I didn't mean to come across as being aggressive. I didn't know if that's, but in person, we can cut through all the BS and get down to it. But in emails, it's so formal and structured. Yeah. That's that communication versus let's have a conversation. But the big things I think that all people need to be better at, including myself and probably most of the people on this panel, is don't bargain yourself down before you get to the table. It's easy to do that, whether it's a confidence issue or whatever it is. I have seen attorneys talk to clients on the phone. They'll say, my rate is $350 an hour. Oh, but if that's too high for you, we can talk. At that point, you've given, you're saying, I will take less money if you'll pay less money. That's how desperate I am. And, we try to tell people, you can throw a rock down the street and hit an attorney charging double what you're charging. You're worth it. Know your value. Don't bargain yourself down, but be realistic. If you're going in for that job interview or whatever it is, kind of know what your value is. And don't be afraid. And I don't know, Suzy, if this is what your book you mentioned kind of goes into, but splitting the baby down the middle or whatever, sometimes that's a solution. A lot of times it's not. And don't be afraid to walk away and say, this is my bottom line. And if we're not going to get anywhere near it, I'm not going to have this discussion. We're not going to play halvesies until we get to the middle. I've told attorneys that. I'm telling you right now, we're not doing the halvesies game. This is our bottom line. If you can't get there, then we're done talking. And, so that's something important to know your worth and don't be afraid to walk away if it's right.
Wonderful. Keith, bring me home and then we'll jump into these questions.
So I think the confidence thing is perfect. The preparation a lot of times will help with the confidence if you've thought through, done your research, and et cetera. You know your person, understanding their personal motivation as well as yours. And then I think it goes back to the if then. If you're going to ask me this, this is what I'm going to ask in return, so that both of us are happy with this situation and I benefit the most, if you will. But at the same time, if you're going to do this, then I'm willing to walk away. And I have walked away from big sales, big deals, cars. I mean, I've walked away. Now, sometimes I've got the sneaky thing. I'm like, all right, well, hey, Susie, I think that was great. I'm gone. And then I literally got up and walked out and they're like, no, come back. Right? That's called leverage. I was willing to walk away. They were just trying to, and I called their bluff. So I think that's where the confidence and preparation comes. Eric can't afford to not do this with me. So if he's throwing some stuff, I'm going to put my things out there. He's either going to accept or I'm going to walk away. And I think that's where the ultimate confidence and your preparation will help you feel confident in that regard.
I love it. Susie, the book you said was Never Split the Difference, right? By Chris Voss. I'll put that in the chat for everybody. So I appreciate all your guys' time. We've got a few questions and then we could take live questions if you guys need it. I think just in the matter of time, we've got about 14 minutes. I'll ask the question and maybe I'll just kind of pick someone. And if anybody has any additional feedback, I just want to make sure we get through them all. So Kelsey said, when going into a new job discussion on salary or income, how much transparency should we provide to a potential employer? I'm going to start there with Keith because just from a personal perspective, I've banged on Keith a lot for this in my past couple of years. So let's start with Keith. And again, Susie and Andrew, I'd love your opinions. And we've got two other questions that I think are right up your alley. So Keith, just real quick, how transparent should someone be?
I think it should be as transparent as possible for them to understand your personal motivation and your rationalization for X, but at the same time, not of, oh my God, Andrew, I really need this job because I got these bills that are right. You just given away at that point. So I think at some point, here is my business plan, why this price, why this thing would be justified and what I bring to the table and what I feel like I could bring to your company. Now that I think that shows a little bit of vulnerability, but it shows the preparation. But yes, you need to make sure you have that poker face. Otherwise, right now you have zero leverage and they're the ones that could be doing this.
Andrew, Susie, any comments on that from your world?
I hate to negotiate salary for myself. I've never liked to do that. I don't, it's a little different in my world. I think maybe in some other worlds where at my level in my career, if I went to another firm, they would say, how much money can you make us? And base your salary. I mean, there's certain models that certain firms use, but it's a lot of how much money are you going to make for us? And then we'll talk about how much money we're going to give to you or how much we're going to let you keep of what you bring in and all kinds of things like that. But yeah, doing your homework, going in, it's okay to say, here's the salary. A lot of times I'll ask you, what kind of salary are you looking for? Don't be afraid to tell them what you're looking for. But be very aware if you're pricing yourself out of a market or out of a job that you really want. Sometimes you'll take less money for a different way of life. I had lots of attorneys in my career leave for giant firms early on because they wanted to make $200,000 a year. And I would say, great, you're going to work 80 hours a week. And if you want that, go chase it. I didn't want that. I wanted to be with my family more. And so I knew going in, I'm not going to come in saying, you were going to pay me $250,000. They would have said, thanks, but no thanks. We've got somebody who'll do it for 75. So just be aware of that and go in, but don't, like I said, don't bargain yourself down. Don't come in. Eric, I think I told you that story. We went to buy our house. My wife, the first thing she said to the seller's agent, we walked in on a tour was, this is amazing. And it's priced just right. And I started laughing and I knew the agents, I started laughing and I said, what she meant to say was twice as much as it's worth. And we've got a whole list of problems, but I was like, okay, so but even a few years ago, Susie, the market wasn't a place where we could have negotiated down pretty much anyway. Yeah. So, but I just started laughing like, okay, so now we're not negotiating price.
So my answer is, I think be as transparent as you want to, as feels right for you, but you better know how your value fits into their business plan. You better do enough homework to really understand what you bring to the table.
I'll tell you guys this, just if I can give my tidbit on it. I believe in being so transparent as this is what I think I'm worth. To Andrew's point, you might price yourself out of the market, but I believe that concession strategy is knowing, well, what's your benefits? What's your work from home? Do you pay for my car? What's your cell phone plan? Wow, you do a bonus structure? All right, so if I take 10 grand less, truthfully, I get 25 grand in benefits. I'm in. So like, I think that homework is asking the right questions, knowing your worth, but then with income in general, I believe there's so much more to salary than what you're paid every day. That's just my opinion.
And a good employer, a good interviewer will make that clear that we pay this, but we also include all of this,
Love that. Yeah.
And be ready to put a little bit of it on the line and make it incentive if it gets you higher.
Yep.
For me, that always worked.
It sounds like we're negotiating right now. I love it. So next question from Karen. Can we touch on negotiation between departments with different priorities and challenges? Oh, I feel like
Can I take this one?
I was going to say, Suzy, this is
So part of my job is I have Long & Foster owns a mortgage company. We have a title partner. We have an insurance company. And so part of my role is to work with the partners that are associated with my office. And part of the way what makes, part of how I'm incentivized is how well we do with those partners. And so they're great at what they do and they provide great service. But what makes me a good partner for them, they're not just my partner, I'm their partner. And so I think that's the way you have to look at it from a different department standpoint, is to ask for help and receive it. You have to be that person that helps them achieve their goal. And so if you got to give before you ask. And that is the way I see that relationship.
I completely agree with that.
It's vital today in most companies. It's an interdependency. It's not like I'm on the front line. You have to do what I need. It's really about helping each other.
And I want Andrew to touch on this for a second, because I know when we were chatting specifically, the one thing we kept mentioning was, we're here to bring everybody up. Like when I need my penetration testing guy to do something, I don't tell him to do it. We talk about how it's going to benefit both of us and how I'm going to support him. And how I'm negotiating not without him realizing, but I'm always negotiating. And Andrew, I know, especially in the legal world, like you've got 500 different departments, or 500 different people doing 500 different things.
Well, the big thing with us is the benefit of being at a firm I went from a firm that was a much smaller size, which I felt comfortable at, to a firm with over, I think we have 200 attorneys or whatever we have now, all kinds of departments. And a lot of times, I do some litigation work, but if it's a complex, big piece of litigation, I want to go to my litigation guys and say, I need your help. And we're a partnership. We're supposed to be partners. And some attorneys will never email me back. I remember that. We're coworkers, but at the same time, you weren't willing to help me, and you'll be the first one to come to me and say, oh my God, I have this crazy Maryland real estate issue. Maybe I'm not as inclined to help you. I don't do that, but I could if I want.
That's like my brother.
But a lot of times when I don't hear back, I'll talk to somebody else who will tell me how stressed they are, how understaffed they are. They might say, look, we just lost 3 of our labor and employment attorneys and we're swamped. And I have to understand that and appreciate that, because sometimes they'll come to me and I'll say, look, if I'm telling you no, know that it's sincere. I really cannot help you now. I am just so underwater. If it can wait a week or 2, I'd be happy to help, because I want to preserve that relationship. If it is a workload issue, or one department's talking to another and you guys are all talking past each other, it could be, what are your demands? What are your stresses? Let me tell you what ours are. Maybe they don't know each other, and maybe we can't solve this problem. We have to go up to a management level to say, we have this issue. Neither department can solve it because of the issues we have, or whatever the issue is. But for me, a lot of it is, understanding the demands of the other side or the other person in the company,
Right.
and trying to manage that.
Yeah. And Keith, if you don't mind, I want to jump to the last question because I believe this was made for you. The next question was directly made for you. It said, I'd like to ask about scope creep again. My husband works in healthcare and he's constantly being asked for an increase in workload. How can he say no in a professional way without spurring his coworkers? Literally, I mean, please share me your wisdom.
So I think the first thing is going to be, first of all, what does your contract say is it? Because I hear oh, that's not my job. Well, I get it. And if it's truly not your job and it's going to take a long time and it's going to take you away from and you're going to get in trouble, then obviously that's a no. But I mean, I've worked with a bunch of different teams where I'm like, oh, it's not really my thing. It's not going to take me that long. I guess I could. And then the quick little negotiation, like, hey, Eric, I got to get this done first because this is my job. I'm happy to help you on that. If we can do it at this time in this way, then I can help you. Happy to be a good team player. And the person's like, oh, well, I can't wait that long. I'll go find somebody else. Problem solved, but you were being that team player. So it's I'm more than happy to help you, but I need to get these things done that are my core focus first. Can we do this at the end of the day, maybe between 3 and 4? Oh, I'm going to get in trouble before, right? Then they go find somebody else. You're off the hook. So I think it's just putting some parameters around it if it keeps happening. But if it's your boss that keeps asking, that could be a completely different story here too, because he or she could just be looking to take advantage of your situation.
Yeah, I think wearing multiple hats is it's so tough because, and Alex, thank you for asking this, because I'm sure everybody experiences this. It's like, hey, by the way, thank you so much for all that you do. I need you to do 50 more things. And it's like, what? How did we get there from where I started? So Keith, it sounded like you said set parameters, be transparent, and talk about it. Andrew and Suzy, do you have anything to add before we close out?
So I agree. I agree 100%.
It's
fair. Suzy?
we all have to have those lines.
Yeah.
And you're still worth it.
Yeah. Well, look, wow, what a great way to end. Very direct and to the point from all three of you. So let's do this. Here's my ask for all of you guys. There's 10, 15 of us on here. You've got, you've got the 3 panelists and myself. My ask for you guys is we're going to share this video. Please follow everybody on here. We're all on social media. We're all on LinkedIn. Please reach out if you have any questions. Please reshare this video because you all have hundreds of people that might have not either known about this or might want to know about this. So my ask to you guys is to try your best to share this, reach out, ask questions. Everybody on here is receptive. Everybody on here is willing to have a conversation, whether it's you have a personal, professional question, you want to go through training, talk to Keith. You need a legal question, talk to Andrew. You're interested in buying a home, talk to Suzy. And then if I'm all these, you want cybersecurity, I'm your guy, right? So all the people here are willing to work with you and support you. And I think this is such an important topic. And I can't thank my 3 panelists enough that you guys just bring such a wealth of knowledge. It's insane. I am the biggest sponge when I'm around you guys. And I'm so appreciative that you're able to just feed everybody here all your information. So thank you. And thank you everybody for being a part of it. So with 2 minutes to spare, I'm going to pass it back to Morgan, and I hope everybody has a wonderful day.
Thank you, Eric.
Thank you so much. I couldn't have said it better myself. Eric, you were also amazing. What a great moderator. So thank you for doing this and being such a great part of the YPN team and the Celerate series. You all do a lot of hard work. So we're very thank you, or appreciative to what you add to the chamber. But lastly, I wanted to go ahead and share my screen, if it will. There we go. And say thank you again to our sponsors and remind you of the upcoming events. Is everybody seeing that? The upcoming events? Perfect. Good. It's not highlighting like it normally is. But we really hope that you can make it out to our YPN mixer on the 5th in person. So definitely don't get that mixed up because we are trying to change from the virtual a little bit. And then that informational session on the 14th. Our GovConnect series on the 20th and our Ask the Experts on the 22nd. And we will give you about 30 seconds to a minute back in your day. Thank you, everybody. You were a great panel. Eric, amazing. And thank you so much.
Great.
Thanks everybody.
Everybody.
You guys.
Have a wonderful day.